What is going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Living Freed channel. My name is Tyler Freed, and like I said in the previous video, I was gonna make a video about whether or not you should get your own authority or lease on to a carrier. Now, I'm gonna be talking to the people that are looking at buying a truck, or they own one truck. I would say they own 1 to 5 trucks. And I'm going to talk about pretty much the newer business owner in trucking, because look, if you're somebody that owns 5+ trucks and you have your own authority, it's going to be a lot different for you than it is when you're just getting started. So I'm going to just talk about the pros and cons of each. And again, specifically, if you're somebody that's just looking at starting as a one-man show, one-man owner operator, or small fleet owner. And just for clarification, I personally have 5 trucks, and all 5 of those trucks are leased on to a carrier. They're leased on to Crete carrier, and I'll talk about why that is later in the video, more towards the end. So I appreciate all of you for being here, and I would appreciate it if you would stay tuned till the very end so you can actually hear about that and also hear the entire point I'm going to be making. Like the video, sub to the channel, dislike it if you don't like me and you don't like the content, dislike it. Either way, like I always say, it helps out with the YouTube algorithm and growing the channel. So I'd really appreciate that. But I'm going to get right into it. So why am I making this video? Well, because I got asked to make a video about this, the pros and cons of having your own authority versus leasing onto a company. So I would say, number one, having your own authority, I'll talk about that, which I don't have that, but I do understand the pros and cons of having your own authority. I would say number one, your cost of doing business when you have your own authority is going to be a lot higher than when you lease on, especially at first. Number one reason is because of insurance. Liability insurance is going to be higher for new carriers versus if you were to lease on to a company, because you're using their insurance. And if they're a authority that's been aged for a few years, their rates are generally going to be lower than what your insurance rates are going to be when you're first starting out. Not to deter you from getting your own authority. And look, like I said, I'm leased onto a company, but I'm not totally against ever getting my authority in the future, and I'm going to get into that. But, you will have higher insurance costs than if you were to lease on to an existing carrier that's been in existence for a few years plus. So that's number one, really just the cost of insurance. Number two, the cost of fuel will probably be a little higher. Yes, you can get discounts when you get your own fuel card and you get set up with a company like that. But typically the larger companies, when you lease onto them, they can pass on those discounts on fuel to you, and they're going to be a lot higher in terms of the percentage, or in terms of the cents off per gallon, because they buy fuel at such high volumes, and you get the benefit of getting those discounts, right? So when you lease onto a company, you get the benefit, moral of the story, of the fuel discounts. A lot of times you'll get discounts on tires and different parts for your truck, and also discounts on just basic, hourly rates at certain shops, right? So moral of the story, leasing onto an existing carrier typically at first is going to be a lot lower cost to you. And why is that important when you're starting out, especially with one truck? Well, because you want to have a low cost of operation when you first start. I always recommend, either way, whether you have an authority or not, do it debt-free. Buy a truck debt-free. Have a $20,000 to $30,000 emergency fund for that truck. But another thing too, you got to think about when you have your own authority. Okay, you got to have a trailer. That's even more money that you're going to have to invest up front to be able to have your authority. Yes, you can do like power only, but you're going to be limited on the freight you can haul. So you do got to consider that when you have enough money to buy one truck. Do you want to go out and rent a trailer, lease a trailer? That is an option, but that's an added cost versus when you lease on to a company and they already have a trailer pool you get to use their trailers. That's less money that you have to pay to start your business up. So look, when you're a smaller carrier or you're a smaller owner operator or fleet owner, there's a lot of benefits, and mainly it's just the cost, right? A lot of benefits to leasing on to an existing carrier, like I just alluded to, especially, like I said, with the costs. So should you go out with one truck and get your own authority, and can you have success? Sure. Look, if you do it debt free, you buy all your equipment cash, you have an emergency fund for that equipment, you will have some success. I'm not saying you won't, but for 90% of the people who are starting out as owner operators, you're better off just buying a truck, leasing onto a company that has a trailer pool, using their load boards, their connections with brokers, their contract freight, having their also, too, you got to think about the back office paperwork. They handle your IFTA. They handle your 2290. They handle a lot of things. They handle the load planning. They handle a lot of times, they handle the dispatching. Sometimes you lease onto a company where you get to dispatch yourself or use a dispatcher. They already have all the systems in place that you'll have to build when you have your own authority. Another thing too, it's going to be a lot harder for you when you have 5 trucks or less to secure long-term contract freight. And so what you can do is say, well, eventually I want to get my own authority, but I'm going to lease onto a company and build up my funds and invest in more equipment and keep adding trucks to my small business and keep them on with this company. And eventually when I have the scale, that's when I'll go and get my own authority, and that way I have better opportunity to get my own customers. See, I really think when you have 5 trucks or less, honestly, and look, some people watching me have their own authority and they only have 1 truck or 2 trucks, and they're doing very well. Not saying you can't. I'm talking about for the majority, you're better off leasing onto a company that already has the connections with customers, already has the systems in place, and you have a much lower cost of operation, a much lower fixed cost of operation, and variable, like I said, with the fuel discounts. You know, that's what I would say. That's the biggest differences, honestly. I mean, trucking is trucking at the end of the day. If you have your own authority and you're dealing with brokers, it's no different than leasing onto a company that's hauling for brokers. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. The only difference is when you're leased on, they're taking a percentage off the top. That carrier that you're leased onto is taking a percentage off the top. Yes, when you have your own authority, you do get 100% of the freight bill. You do get paid 100% of the load, but again, your costs are higher. And a lot of times, let's say they're taking 20% off the top. It's an 80-20 split. Well, that 20% that they're taking off the top is covering the liability insurance, all the different insurances. It's covering the ELD. It's covering all the different fees and everything that carrier has to pay for. Also, they want to make a little bit of money for doing that back office paperwork for you that you would have to do yourself if you had your own authority. It saves you a lot of time. That's number one. When you're first starting out as an owner operator, the most important thing is saving time so that you can focus on running your truck, maintaining your truck, producing revenue and profit for that truck that you own. The last thing you want to be doing is all the other back office paperwork that you would have to do with your own authority. And again, if you've got scale and everything, and you want to go more towards the route of a true business owner and start running a company and getting out of the truck to run the back office, that's when I say, okay, it makes sense because you've got scale now. But when you're first starting out, you're going to be driving. When you have 5 trucks or less, you're going to be driving. You're going to be driving, and you want to delegate a lot of that back office paperwork and things you have to do to other people. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is lease your truck or trucks on to a carrier that already does that for you. That is what I've done with Crete. You know, Crete handles all of the things I just talked about. I get discounts on fuel. I get discounts on services on my truck and parts for the truck. I get discounts on many different things, right? Yes, they take money off the top of every load that I haul, but it's paying for all these different things, right? It's paying for so much stuff. It's priceless, really. It's worth every dime to me to save me time, because if I had my own authority, I would have to pay for those things anyway. I would have to file that paperwork and handle all that stuff myself. Whereas being leased on, they take like half the workload off of me, so I can focus on just running my trucks, maintaining my trucks, doing payroll for my drivers. But a lot of the other stuff, again, is taken off of me, and they handle it for me, which is really nice. Now, in the long run, do I think getting your own authority? I'm going to talk about the pros now of getting your own authority. But I think when you're small, when you're 5 trucks or less, 90% of you should really just think about leasing on. And it doesn't have to be Crete. There's many companies: Landstar, Mercer, JB Hunt, Knight, Swift. You could even lease your truck onto like FedEx. Most of the FedEx companies are independent contractors that own multiple trucks. They don't have their own authority, and they're doing very well. I know one guy personally who owns 50 trucks with FedEx. I know him personally. He comments on my videos every once in a while. Yeah, I mean, 50 trucks and he doesn't have his own authority, and he's probably doing better than most people that have their own authority. He is 100%. He's working under their system. Now, do I plan on 100% having all of my trucks on with Crete in the long run? I don't know. As of right now, I'm not moving any of my trucks and not changing what I'm doing, because it's working. If it ain't broke, you don't fix it, right? But if I ever wanted to, let's say, go out and hire on contractors, I can't do that. With not having my own authority, I'm limited on my growth. And how am I limited? Again, like I said, when I'm leased onto a carrier, I can't hire contractors and pay them 80% and keep 20% and do that and scale that way. Versus if I had my own authority, I would be able to do that. I'd be able to hire company drivers and owner operators. So that is the downside to being leased on. If you plan on having a authority and hiring both owner operators and company drivers, well then, okay, it makes sense for you to get your own authority. And in the future, if I ever want to do that, and I may want to do that, you never know. But that would be the number one reason I would get my own authority, to be honest with you, is so that I could scale in another way that I can't scale currently, right? So I am limited again on my growth to one avenue, and that's just buying trucks and putting drivers in them. Now, that's working, and I'm doing well doing that, but maybe eventually I do want to venture out and do that and get my own contracts and have a lot more control over my business, right? Yeah, you do give up some control. When you lease onto a company, you have to follow their rules and everything, but again, you have to just weigh the pros and cons. I'm not going to recommend anybody do anything except for what I would do and what I personally do. And personally, I see no benefit where I'm currently at to getting an authority. Now, if I go from 5 to 10 trucks, I can see pretty much going up from where I'm at. I can see the benefit of eventually getting an authority. I can see that. But if I were to just stay at 5 trucks or whatever, I don't really see the benefit of it. I really don't. Because I can just, use the money that I'm making from these trucks and invest in other things. Now, I do plan on growing. And like I said, in the future, I am considering getting my own authority, but I have a different plan for that business than I do for the business with Crete. The business with Crete is very straightforward. It's buy trucks, put drivers in them, and manage the equipment, manage the drivers, and do that. But again, the opportunity with an authority is a lot higher, but it also comes with higher costs and a lot more back office paperwork, just a lot more work to do, right? That I'm delegating currently to another carrier. And so, yeah, those are the things, right? Those are the things. You just got to weigh the pros and cons. I mean, as far as just setting up an authority, that's not hard to do. It's very easy to go online and set up your own authority. But if you don't have a business plan, if you don't have a long-term plan, and I talked about this in one of my last videos, about having a long-term plan for how you're going to secure freight. If you're going to get your own authority, and then I'm going to end with this really, if you're going to get your own authority, you need to have a plan for how you're going to secure long-term dependable freight, long-term. If you do not have a plan for that, then it's going to be very tough for you to have long-term success. It just is. And I know that's common sense, but most people who get their own authority, most companies that start in trucking, they don't do that. They don't plan for, hey, how am I going to build relationships with brokers where I don't have to depend on the spot market? How am I going to get my own direct customers? What's my plan for that? Do I have a marketing strategy, a sales strategy? What's my strategy? If you don't have that and you're just going to go in and get your authority and wing it, don't do that, because you can go lease onto a company that already has the sales and marketing team, load planners, has the contracts, has connections with brokers, has all the other benefits I just talked about. These are the things you got to think about. It's a lot to think about, but you know, if you come up with a really good plan, you can have success either way. You can have success with your own authority. You can have success leasing onto a company. I know successful people doing both. So, you know, you just have to decide for yourself. So that's my video about leasing on versus having your own authority as an owner-operator or fleet owner. That's my video. And if you have any other questions, make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below. I'll make a video about it. But for now, that's really all I have to say about that. And I really appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Make sure you stay tuned for more videos like this in the future. God bless and peace out.